What's going on YouTube? Or Storm here, coming at you guys with another video today. Today I'll be bringing you my updated Pendulum Magician deck profile for the the May 2018 ban list. So again, we did lose Astrograph, Sorcerer, and Supreme King Starving Venom. So the deck definitely lost a little bit of the cards that gave it like advantage and steam, but I still think the deck is in a pretty dang good state as far as what it can set up. It just means you need a few more cards to set up your combos, so we'll go ahead and get to it. So first off, of course, you know, even though Astrograph is gone, we still have the 3 Chronograph Sorcerers and 1 Time Gazer Magician. Time Gazer actually got a little bit more important, which I'll show you guys when I get to the extra deck. But Chronograph is still a fantastic card. I mean, obviously it's no Astrograph. It's the reason it didn't see play before Electromite. It is still a really good card. Being able to special summon resources from your hand, including non-pendulum monsters, you can play things like Avian, is really, really good. And Time Gazer people don't tend not to read its monster effect to protect your scales from destruction once, so that's pretty decent as well. Its level is relevant for some of the plays you'll be making now. Then probably like the new MVP, of course she's always been MVP, but now the new MVP is 3 Harmonizing Magicians. Absolutely nutty card. A lot of the plays you used to do are going to be using this girl to get them off. So whenever she's Pendulum summoned, she special summons any magician from your deck, not just level 4. So there's so many like weird kind of plays where you can still make the Absolute Dragon into Vortex play pretty consistently with this card, with some of the new cards we're playing in this list. And her Pendulum effect's actually not too bad in kind of late game scenarios. It actually won me a game against the Draco player I played at the regional. A lot of you draw against him. Then of course 3 Wisdom Eye Magicians. There's actually a lot of combos where I will actually quote unquote kind of search, I'll put that in quotation, search this out with Electromite over here. Basically, if you have a magician but you don't have a way to set up a scale, what you'll do is you'll make Electromite pop a non-magician and then add this back to your hand. You don't always want to stack basically Electromite effectively now has become your search card, and this card is still amazing for setting up your scales, getting any pieces you need. And the only bad thing is it's not a dark monster, but that doesn't really matter much anymore because Starving Venom's gone, so that doesn't really matter anymore. But it's a level 4 magician that can be used for rank 4 and Electromite plays, so really, really strong. And a 3 Purple Poison Magician, this card is basically your out to most floodgates if your opponent has something like Anti-Spell, Imperial Order, which are going to get more relevant with Brandish coming out, which I'll get more about Brandish in a later date. But those cards are going to be seeing more play, which means you need to have 3 Purple Poison in your deck so you can out things. Also be allowing to pump up your Dark Spellcasters is also really, really nice. Then 3 copies of Black Fang Magician. So every time I try to trim Black Fang down, I quickly realize you do need 3 still. It is your best low scale. It's the card you're going to be putting in, and you do go through 3. There's also a plethora of newer targets for this that I'll show you guys in a minute that you can target out of the graveyard with this. Really, really good card. Then for the kind of the last couple magicians, we have 2 Oak Dragons and 2 Yankee Magicians. So a lot of you guys might be questioning, you know, why Yankee Magician, you know? Well, the main thing is if you want to do the Absolute Dragon play, you need more level 7 monsters. So there's several different options you can use. There is Dragon Caller Magician, which is also Dark Spellcaster like Yankee Magician. There's also Dragon Pit, but Dragon Pit isn't a Dark Spellcaster. I settled on Yankee Magician because I feel like it has the best monster effects, because being able to negate light monsters. It also is a low scale, which is pretty nice. But if you do want to make Raging Dragon or something like that, you can also play Dragon Caller as well. But the main reason I run 2 is because Pot of Desires is now on my list again, so I'm adjusting my main deck accordingly. Oak Dragon has always been one of my favorite magician monsters, being able to constantly, especially with, you know, Electromite over here, you can effectively search, you know, get two Pendulum monsters back from your extra deck every turn, and that's really, really good. It's also level 6 for your Naruto plays, but I've always ran 2 Oak Dragons. You guys have been following the channel forever. You understand. This card's been at 2 since I started profiling this deck. So, ain't broke, don't fix it. That's it for the Magicians. We do play some other, you know, Pendulum-based engines. So the new addition to the deck actually is the Mythical Beast. So this is 2 Master Servers and 3 Master Servers and the 2 Jackal Kings. Master Cerberus, every time I open with this card, it's just, drawing Jackal King does suck at times, but it does have a lot of synergy with the deck because it is a dark spellcaster. But Cerberus is still an amazing card. Being able to play, you can actually use it going second to play into your opponent's board. It can eat hand traps while it's in the Pendulum Zone, and these cards just, it works. Some people say it bricks in testing, some people don't. My results have said the cards are really, really good. In worst case scenario, Jackal King is just kind of like Kieran used to be, where it's a card you just simply Pendulum summon out, and you activate one Pendulum monster or one spell card, it gains 2 counters and can negate monster effects. So pretty decent engine. Cerberus is also is also pretty good as well for being able to banish things and bait things playing into a board, which magicians can do pretty well. Then for the, of course, it would be a Pendulum deck nowadays without this engine, which is the 3 Dark Worms and the 2 Gate Zeros. I debated cutting Gate Zero down because there were lists where I was only playing 1 before, but again, with Pot of Desire, a lot of times with things, especially with things like Pot of Desires, you will find that you'll need the second one, and there's a lot of times where what you'll do is you'll have one in scale and then one you summon out to make your plays. Dark Worm is still an amazing card. It's one of the best normal summons the deck has, and you can send it with things like Dragon Shrine and Foolish Burial. So yeah. Then for the last few monsters, wouldn't be Yugioh nowadays without these cards. Just 2 Ash Blossoms and 2 Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbits. Now, I do have the 3rd Ash Blossom, so I would say that I would probably, if I were going to go to an event or whatever right now, I probably would play a 3rd Ash Blossom as well. But the thing is that not every hand trap is going to cover every matchup, is something screencasters told me, was that you want to have these cards because these in tandem at 2, because you never really want to see these guys anything more than 1 in your hand. But seeing both of them in the same hand is actually not bad because it can stop your opponent's plays, especially going second. Now, like I said, magicians are more than capable of playing into a board, but outside of the mirror match, there's a lot of Pendulum matchups in general. Most decks are if you don't open one of these cards, is gonna set up a board on you anyways. So I still think these cards are pretty necessary, and I kind of like, if you want to run more hand traps, you could. If you don't have a 4-head girl here, you could play things like Effect Veiler is also pretty good, or you could max out on Ghost Ogres and Veilers, up to you. Then for the spells, of course, as I mentioned earlier, 2 Pot of Desires. Feels good kind of to dust this card off again. So anyways, Pot of Desires is still the best draw card we currently have in the game, besides maybe Card Demise. But in terms of generic draw cards, it draws you 2 cards. It gets you. There's times in testing where I've had more banishes than I used to have. Most of the time, the only really card that you care about banishing nowadays is maybe if you banish like your Time Gazer. But other than that, like most of the time, this card is going to get you to those those extra 2 cards you need, combo pieces you need to beat your opponent. Then for some of the 1-ofs, of course, the 1 Dragon Shrine, the 1 Foolish Burial. I've seen builds playing more than 1 Dragon Shrine. My theory with Dragon Shrine is that it's dead after you make your initial play. So you never want to see hands with more than 1 Dragon Shrine in them. And heck, but in the case of Foolish Burial, it has a little bit more flexibility because you can send, any Dark Spellcaster to be rezzed with Black Fang, but again, that's when you're going second. So the main reason I play only 1 Dragon Shrine rather than builds that I've seen builds that play 2 to 3 is because I only have, it's pretty dead in this deck after turn 1. So that's one of the reasons why it's like that. Then the last 2 spells, of course, we have the 2 Pendulum Calls. I have debated, I've seen various different ratios with this card nowadays, but in this particular build, since I no longer play Duelist Alliance due to Draco's not being as good, I decided that just main decking the 2 Pendulum Calls is the best way to go. It's a card you're going to have a love-hate relationship with, but you still need to have it in there's certain hands where it'll literally fix your hand. And nowadays you are playing more non-magician monsters, things like the Mythical Beast package, the Dark Worm, Supreme Gate Zero. That's already like 10 to 12 monsters right there. So like you shouldn't really have an issue with having things to pop with your Electromite. And that's the entire main deck. It's 40 cards. So of course, for the extra deck, we have 3 copies of Heavy Metal Foes Electromites. So for the regional, I did pick up the 3rd, and it really does come up a little bit more than I thought. It is the best card in your deck. So I've seen you can definitely get away with 2, but 3 can really come up during a lot of combos. Now I will say, without Astrograph Sorcerer, there do tend to be a lot of combo play strings where doesn't seem to do very much. Like, it's not bad, but like it doesn't do as much as you would think. I know that sounds crazy considering the things that this card enables, but like the draw, you're only really gonna draw one card off of its effect, and there's a lot of times where I end on weird boards where it's literally just Electromites and like maybe one negation. But that being said, it is still the absolute best card in the deck, so one of the reasons the deck's even good, so you definitely play 3. Then the one Underclock Taker. So funny story about this card is that I decided last minute to play it because someone told me is like you should play it because if you get Reapered, and funny enough, and against the True Draco player I mentioned earlier, he Reapered all 3 of my Electromites, so I was able to still establish a board thanks to this card here. And it's also really good because it can unclog those weird clumpy boards. So that's kind of where Underclock Taker is really good. And on top of that, it allows you to push damage, especially if you're side decking things like Red Reboot. You know, this allows you to get those last little bits of damage in, so you can push for that OTK. It's just a really good generic link. I'm surprised that it's a common. Then one Zephyr Metaltron, I decided to cut Decode Talker because a lot of the situations I could make Decode Talker simply have a beater. I can make this, which is Borlo Dragon. So Zephyr Metaltron is either with True Draco's gone, I don't really feel like you need Decode Talker anymore because most of the time it's just being a big beater, and especially with the decks that are coming out like Sky Strikers and the decks we currently have like Gokeys, you really don't want to give them an extra spot to summon monsters. That's not something you really want to do. And the same thing goes for the Mirror Match. That's why I prefer Metaltron in most situations, because it doesn't have that extra, just to give my opponent that slot. Borlo Dragon just allows you to out so many boards. Like if you can, and the deck gets into it so easily. If you get to an Electromite, typically, and you get to a Pendulum Summon, you're going to have the resources to summon a Borlo Dragon, and it can get those dead Link monsters off the board. So you can actually play around things like Raw Sphere Mode, for example. And it's pretty decent against decks like Spirals because most of their removal effects are monster targeting. So pretty decent cards there. Then for the rank 4s, I actually only play 2 rank 4s. I know it sounds crazy, but 1 Abyss Dweller and 1 Tornado Dragon. So Baguska and Time Star were cards that came out, and because I never really touched them very often anymore. The only time, in the case of Baguska, it came up when I had a really awkward hand. But looking at my build now, there's rarely times where I'm ending on Electromite with 2 monsters. So that's why I really like and the same thing, Time Star just hardly ever comes up. It's like I just have nothing else to make. So that's one. But Dweller, I've had this Dweller for now on 4, I think almost 4 years now, and I will say that it has won me so many games. And I would really think it's still a really fantastic card to have in your Magician extra deck, simply because it covers all of those these rogue matchups and just decks that rely on the graveyard. Gokeys need the graveyard. Altergeist have a lot of cards that float. And you look at something like Spirals, really need the graveyard. Anything if anyone's still playing Lightsworn type decks, they need the graveyard. There's just so many things that need activate in the grave that's where this thing comes in really good. Tornado Dragon is just a really good generic rank 4, so that's one of the reasons that we have it in here. It's just good card, really good card to have in your extra deck. Then 1 copy of Naruto. So Naruto is a lot easier to make in this deck now that I'm playing the Mythical Beast package. It is a lot more consistent. It comes up a lot more, and it's just like having an extra spell negate is always really nice. Another rank 6 I did consider was Utopia Beyond. I'm gonna have to do more testing though before I consider playing that card. Then of course we have the Vortex and the Absolute Dragon for bringing out that Vortex Dragon and have an extra negation. It's pretty consistent with the Yankee Magician play. Then for the Synchros, a new addition to the extra deck actually is 1 copy of F.A. Dawn Dragster. So you guys have probably seen this in some of the Pendulum Magician deck profiles post lists. So if you're unfamiliar with what it does, there's 2 effects you really don't care about. The main thing is the bottom effect, which is when a opponent activates a spell or trap card or effect, key thing there, effect, so it can negate face-up cards as well. It's a quick effect to reduce its level by 2 and negate the activation and destroy it. This is on a 2000 body, so the way you summon this is with Harmonizing Magician and a Time Gazer. it's pretty consistent. I also would say that you can definitely play Meteor Burst Dragon as well. It's another level 7 that's pretty consistent to make, that can do a lot of the absolute dragon combos. But I just like Dawn Dragsphere because it's just another option for negation. Then when Clearwing, this card is so damn good. If you resolve this against like 90% of decks, typically you're going to ATK to win the game. Whenever it's Synchro Summon, it just nukes all face-up monsters. So a great example is if you're playing against something like True Draco's Pestilence or anything that's back row heavy, and you have them under something like Denko Sekka or Red Reboot. You summon this, you're gonna OTK and go for game. Really strong card. Then for the other level 8s, I play the 1 Cyframe Lord Omega and the 1 Ignister. Ignister still comes up a lot. It's unfortunate, and especially in the mirror matches, because you can pop a scale and then spin another Pendulum card on their control, so it's really, really good. And Omega helps you in a couple of ways. It helps you if you're going in blind. It's really good for playing, for just being able to just figure out what your opponent's playing and make the appropriate play. And it also is really good for playing around things like Sphere Mode. So anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think of this updated Pendulum Magician deck profile in the comment section below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Swordstorm, signing out.